Tonight, only on NBC Montana, remembering Mann Gulch, 75 years after the fatal fire.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. On August 5th, 1949, 75 years ago, the Mann Gulch Fire north of Helena claimed 13 lives. Tonight we take a look back at the firefighters and the equipment used to respond to the fire and how new events and memorials are keeping their memories alive. First, a plane we often see soaring across Montana's big sky for special flights. I took a tour of the DC-3 known as Miss Montana to learn about its connection to the Mann Gulch Fire, the young men who jumped from the plane that day, and how the plane now serves as a shining light of hope and remembrance. The Museum of Mountain Flying in Missoula is home to a significant piece of Montana's aviation history.
This plane has a very, very warm spot in my heart, being a Helena native and having my father had worked on the Mann Gulch Fire in 1949.
This airplane just oozes history. It just oozes history, not just that event, but there were thousands of successful jumps through the years.
They're talking about Miss Montana, a DC-3 now fully restored and getting ready for its next mission. For Pat Collins and Brian Douglas, keeping Miss Montana in flying condition is more than a labor of love. It's a symbol of honor to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the Mann Gulch tragedy.
The history of that event, and this airplane is what's left.
From smoke jumping missions and backcountry cargo flights to the shores of Normandy to mark the 75th anniversary of D-Day, this World War II plane's history runs deep. Originally referred to as 320, this warbird took to the skies in 1944 after rolling off the assembly line. But only 5 years after its first flight, this aircraft went on a firefighting mission no one will forget. The Mann Gulch Fire on August 5th, 1949. 13 young men died that day, 12 smoke jumpers and a fire guard. Lightning sparked the blaze north of Helena, and due to the remote location, officials put a call in for a specialized crew of smoke jumpers from Missoula. They answered that call, and soon 16 smoke jumpers gathered their gear and boarded this plane. I climbed in for a better look inside. Imagine this space filling with smoke jumpers and a flight crew ready to face the Mann Gulch Fire.
Most famous airplane in Montana.
It looks a lot different now than in 1949 after restoration, but one thing remains the same. So this is where they jumped.
This
right
is
there.
the door.
This spot is significant in the moments leading up to the jump, where spotters surveyed the fiery scene below, looking for a safe space for the jumpers to land.
And they were laying on their bellies here, looking out over the gulch as they passed it. And they were talking back and forth and and communicating with the pilot. But I can never walk through that door again without thinking of those two laying right there as a lead up to that tragedy.
But once on the ground, quickly changing conditions whipped up the perfect firestorm, overcoming the crew. Now, 75 years later, with service smoke jumper wings in hand, Miss Montana is ready for the next mission, a flyover of Mann Gulch and the state capitol.
So that's why we do it, and to honor those guys that jumped out that door and didn't make it home.
Now a look back at the moment nearby fire lookouts spotted the first signs of the Mann Gulch Fire and called it in. A fire spotter from Missoula also made that call. I sat down with her daughter to find out how she honors her mother's legacy of service and those who died in the fire.
I respected her so much and wanted so much to be like her.
Missoula resident Charlotte Davey remembers her mother, Carly Cromwell, who passed away in 2017 as an extraordinary person.
She was so intelligent, but humble.
In the summer of 1949, Charlotte's parents volunteered to work as fire spotters for the Forest Service at Strawberry Cabin in the Elkhorn Mountains near Helena.
This one, yeah, this was their little house, and then the lookout was over off to the side. They were just happy that they were there, were able to support everything that went on.
I hiked to the site to get a better look. Built in 1941, Strawberry Cabin sits at an elevation of 6,100 feet. Next to the cabin stands the Fire Lookout Tower, also built in the 1940s. The metal structure, one of a few, stands at 65 feet. This is the site where Cromwell spotted the Mann Gulch Fire on August 5th, 1949, at the top of this Fire Lookout Tower.
I think that's when the chaos ensued.
Reports streamed in as plumes of smoke quickly grew into a giant mushroom cloud.
Well, she always said that they were the first lookout. However, the other Colorado lookout, they placed them as the first call in. But she always said they called in simultaneously. So,
several days later, the tragic news reached the Cromwells at Strawberry Cabin. 12 smoke jumpers and 1 fire guard lost to the flames.
you know, it wounds your heart when you think about how it impacted those victims and their families, you know, forever and ever.
Carly went on to serve in the Navy as a World War II nurse in the Pacific Theater.
You know, it takes a special person to, you know, live through wars and taking care of, you know, wounded.
Inspired and supported by her mother, Charlotte went on to serve in the Marine Corps and later with the Forest Service. And on the 75th anniversary of the Mann Gulch Fire, Charlotte honors her mother's service and the young men who made the ultimate sacrifice with a special Forest Service volunteer pin.
Mann Gulch was one of those that I did, just so people will know and never forget.
Several events are underway for the 75th anniversary of the Mann Gulch Fire. You can find a link to the schedule of events on our homepage at NBCMontana.com. Still ahead, from concept to reality, I follow a Helena artist's progress to transform a city tunnel into a lasting tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in Mann Gulch. Plus, how a special Backcountry Mission is keeping the memories of those who died alive.
Montana wildfire season.
Fire is just filling this valley with smoke right now.
Red flag warnings.
That'll increase our chances of critical fire weather conditions.
Wind gusts are pushing this fire in a northeasterly progression.
Homes threatened.
The Horse Gulch Fire northeast of Helena is moving fast.
NBC Montana is working for you to alert, prepare, and protect you, your family, and our communities during wildfire season. Download the NBC Montana weather app, your first line of defense when wildfires threaten. Stay with NBC Montana.
Welcome back. A tunnel in Helena now shines brightly with a new vibrant mural commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Mann Gulch Fire and the 13 young men who died. I visited the site several times to see the progress, talk to the artist behind it, and learn how a silver lining in the tragedy inspired her design.
I'm just excited to get going. I think it'll be an amazing project, and I can't wait to see it when it's complete.
I first met Helena artist Elise Perpignano in early May at the Lindell Tunnel, where her latest mural, Wildfire, will soon transform this space into a vibrant series of images commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Mann Gulch Fire.
It's like an educational tool, and it's a symbol of strength and resilience.
Selected from 19 submissions, Elise says her inspiration for the design came from finding a silver lining in the tragedy.
It taught us a lot about how to fight fires in different ways and look at like the environment in a different way. It also brought our community together.
With sketches taped to the wall of the tunnel, Elise walks me through her design.
Here's the outside. On this side, we've got the plane and the smoke jumpers. And then this is going to be the gates of the mountainside with all the cliffs.
But the most strategic part of the mural is the location, offering visitors a view of the mountains north of Helena, where the fire took place, claiming 13 lives.
It's really nice because it actually frames Gates of the Mountains, which is just right over there. So it kind of brings you on a little journey.
2 weeks later, I returned to the tunnel to find Elise making her first brushstrokes.
Adding all the color is my favorite part, and just, you know, getting going.
With paint supplies nearby, signs posted to alert the public, and some help from Mother Nature, the mural is beginning to take shape.
Yeah, so we've got the hillside kind of sketched in. going and doing some of the pink clouds currently.
Another 2 weeks pass, and in early June, I stopped by to see the progress.
So I've been kind of sketching in the bigger chunks, or like the more detailed areas. So on this side, it's the plane, and then the parachutes, and like the smoke jumpers emblem. And then I get to go in and fill it in with more color and detail.
Inside the tunnel, you can see a base layer of paint as Elise prepares the walls for her design depicting nature's cycle of life with wildfire.
It feels really special that I am being given the opportunity to share my vision and my creativity in such a big and meaningful project, in such a big, meaningful way.
A lasting symbol of honor, hope, strength, and healing, one brushstroke at a time. Here's a look at the completed mural in Helena, and you can see Miss Montana on the left and the smoke jumpers on the right, along with smoke jumper wings. Bright images on the inside of the tunnel depict the life cycle of wildfire. A ribbon cutting event will be held tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Coming up, a special mission to Mann Gulch, how the Forest Service is honoring those who died in the fire.
Get Montana weather updates right to your email inbox. Go to NBCMontana.com/newsletter to sign up. Be weather ready with severe weather alert team updates on all your devices. Register now at NBCMontana.com/newsletter.
According to the Forest Service, the Mann Gulch Fire remains the single most fatal tragedy in smoke jumper history in the U.S. Now, 75 years later, how a special backcountry mission by the Forest Service honors the men who died and keeps their memories alive.
I'd always heard stories about how powerful it is to stand out there. It very much lived up to the powerful reputation.
For Forest Service employees Chiara Cipriano and Rory Glugark, it's a backcountry mission they'll never forget. Here at the Helena, Lewis and Clark National Forest Service office, they serve as co-leaders for the Mann Gulch 75th Anniversary Memorial. This includes coordinating efforts to replace some of the crumbling monuments in Mann Gulch, with multiple groups stepping up to help.
And so it's just been a really encouraging experience to see that level of support and investment from our community partners.
In May, in coordination with the Last Chance Backcountry Horsemen, new memorials along with equipment and supplies were carefully balanced on mules and transported to Mann Gulch in a solemn procession, while at the same time Chiara and Rory hiked in, with Rory carrying the last memorial weighing 75 pounds.
And it was really just an honor to be able to do that and to have some small piece in this project alone, and I couldn't be more proud to do it.
Once on site, teams worked to install 4 new monuments, and then
we saw these dark clouds roll in and the wind was just ripping through this dry grass. It was just a surreal moment up there.
And a reminder of how 75 years ago similar winds whipped up a deadly firestorm, claiming 13 lives. 2 weeks later, joined by my husband Chris Line, we prepare to hike in to see Mann Gulch and the memorials up close. We take Willow Creek Trail, and after crossing this creek, we make our way into this meadow where posts lead the way. The hike to Mann Gulch is nearly 3 miles. The terrain is steep but beautiful with wildflowers all around. We also see the scars left behind from the Merriweather fire in 2007. Soon we spot this boundary marker, and later we finally crest the ridge of Mann Gulch. Right now I'm standing at the upper end of Mann Gulch in the Gates of the Mountains wilderness, with the Missouri River located at the other end. Down below stands the memorials of those who died in the fire. We take the path going right, and at the top of the ridge, a view of the Missouri River, an initial target for the men fleeing the flames of the Mann Gulch Fire. 20 minutes later, the first memorial comes into view, and take a look at the steep slope below. Imagine the men racing up the gulch trying to escape the advancing flames.
Yeah, you can see by the topography and the steepness of this mountain here that this would have been impossible for any person to be able to outrun a fire.
The memorials are placed in the exact spot where the men fell. We make our way to the next memorial, one with a newly installed cross. We keep going, pausing at each memorial to pay tribute and reflect on what happened. We hiked to 10 of the 13 monuments before, once again, winds pick up and storm clouds roll in. We head back, but take with us a greater understanding of what the men were up against and the ultimate sacrifice they made in Mann Gulch 75 years ago. After the break, a moment-by-moment look at what happened in Mann Gulch 75 years ago and how it inspired a new role for a U.S. Forest Service employee in sharing an important message.
At NBC Montana, you can be a part of our award-winning news and weather team. It's called Chime In. Here's how it works. The next time you see news or weather happening, snap a picture or video and send it our way.
Go to the NBC Montana app and open the menu on the top left. Scroll down to Chime In and click Submit Content. Add your pictures and videos by pressing Upload. Add a comment, a location, then select your topic. It can be Montana weather, news, sports, animals, and much more. Enter your name, email address, and agree to the conditions.
Chime In connects you directly to our news and weather teams. So stay with NBC Montana to see your pictures and videos on air and online. And I'll be working for you, alerting you to severe weather.
Depend on meteorologist Mitchell Coombs, live weeknights at 5, 6, and 10 p.m. on NBC Montana.
To find out what really happened on the ground in Mann Gulch on August 5th, 1949, I reached out to a Mann Gulch fire expert to retrace the moments leading up to the tragic outcome and to hear how it forever changed his life.
So if you were up on that mountain, you'd be looking right down into Mann Gulch.
For retired U.S. Forest Service employee and Mann Gulch historian David Turner, this view from his home in Helena is of a tragedy he knows all too well.
From the beginning, when I became involved with the fire, that it was partly my responsibility to get that word out to the public.
A Forest Service role he took on as a Mann Gulch fire interpreter to get the word out as much as possible.
I think our duty to remember these men that died there.
I sat down with David in his home to learn exactly what happened in Mann Gulch August 5th, 1949.
The lightning strike hits up on this ridge line just above the Missouri River.
The fire quickly grows and a call goes out for help.
But again, because of the terrain, they'd call in the creme de la creme of the time.
An elite team of smoke jumpers from Missoula fly in on a DC-3, now known as Miss Montana.
So the jump is made, everybody lands here.
Once on the ground, the group led by fire boss Wade Dodge make their way to the fire, but quickly change course.
Dodge goes up to the fire, looks at the fire, the way it's acting, looks at all the trees that are around there, all the fuel that's available, and says, this is a death trap.
With the fire now pushing hard and fast, Dodge comes up with a new strategy.
What we're going to do is go down to the river and start building control lines with the river safely at our back.
They head out, but only minutes later, a defining moment as Dodge takes a look back at the fire.
And as he looks over the edge of that, he has fire coming right up that slope at the crew. So their escape to the river is now cut off.
Dodge turns the crew around to make a run for the ridgeline.
It's steep. It's 97 degrees in the gulch on that day.
The crew is then ordered to dump their gear to move faster.
It's every man for himself.
But moments later, realizing they couldn't outrun the flames, Dodge does something new.
Without a word, takes a book of paper matches and starts tossing them into the grass.
An escape fire here and calling out to his crew to come up this way, but they race by.
He lays down in his escape fire. When the main fire comes, it burns over and around him. Again, after the fire passes, he gets up. It's kind of sooty, but other than that, survives the fire.
A life-saving effort, but back then unknown to the rest of the crew.
He's given a lot of credit, Wag Dodge, for setting that escape fire, for burning out the fuel. And And that wasn't taught to smoke jumpers at the time.
By 6 p.m. that day, 13 lives were lost. Along with Dodge, 2 more survived. Walt Rumsey and Bob Sally after making it to Rescue Gulch.
For the general public, it's the tragedy of these guys being so young that 12 of them were veterans of World War II. Not necessarily combat veterans, but they were veterans and had survived World War II only to perish on this hillside.
Now, on the 75th anniversary of the tragedy, David's mission to keep their memories alive continues with the release of a new book titled The 13th Fire.
I've seen that again as a part of my mission to spread that word and tell that story to as many people as I can.
You can find more information on Turner's new book, 13th Fire, by finding the link in this article on our homepage at nbcmontana.com. Coming up, meteorologist Mitchell Coombs uses 3D technology to break down the science behind how fire behaves. Do you have an Echo device? If so, you can get severe weather alert updates and the latest news on your Amazon devices. Just say, Alexa, what's my flash briefing? But first, here's what you need to do. Download the Alexa app, go to settings, select flash briefing, and search for NBC Montana. Wildfire is a word synonymous with a summer in western Montana, but scientists in Missoula stay busy year-round studying fire behavior. Meteorologist Mitchell Coombs visited the Fire Science Lab to learn more about the science behind wildfires.
All fires begin as a single spark, but given the right conditions, they can grow quickly, becoming raging infernos. But what causes a fire to ignite, and how do most fires begin? Ignition sources can be natural, commonly from lightning, or they can be directly linked to human activity. Nearly 85% of all wildfires are human-caused. Once a fire ignites, how rapidly it grows directly relates to the fire's behavior. There are 3 primary factors: fuels, topography, and weather. First, fuels. The amount of fuels present along with how they are arranged, vertically or horizontally, plays a key role. The intensity and rate of the spread of a wildfire are driven by fine dead fuels less than 6 millimeters in diameter, often twigs, leaves, and grass.
Weather can dry out the fuels. Drier fuels, of course, cause a fire to spread faster and be more active.
Topography is the second factor that can drive the growth of a wildfire. Extreme fire behavior is most common in the uphill direction in mountainous areas like we have here in western Montana, and it all relates to how fire transfers heat. The last factor, weather, is the greatest influence for fire behavior. While hot, dry conditions can rapidly dry fuels out, increasing fire behavior, wind is the greatest driver for extreme fire behavior and the greatest concern for firefighter safety.
Wind can change just instantly. And so those changes, different changes in wind, can really cause a massive change in the behavior of a fire.
Take a look at how rapidly this wildfire spreads across the land, driven by powerful winds and the dry fuels. This type of rapid blowover can lead to tragic results, as was the case in the Mann Gulch Fire 75 years ago. The research being conducted at the Fire Science Lab is integral into learning why fires behave the way they do. With greater understanding, the goal is to keep firefighters safe while at the same time decreasing the threats to life and property. Reporting in Missoula, Mitchell Coombs, NBC Montana.
If you want to watch these stories again, you can find all of my Mann Gulch Fire coverage, including photos, maps, and anniversary information on our homepage at nbcmontana.com. And that does it for our special coverage of the Mann Gulch Fire. As we end our broadcast, we remember the men who made the ultimate sacrifice that tragic day 75 years ago. Thanks for watching.